Okay, so I'm really excited to have a guy here. We've been trying to get him out here for the past year. He was kind enough to accept my friend request on Facebook, and we've been going back and forth trying to get him out here, and it's just been hard to get our schedules together, but we finally did it. Joel actually turned me on to his book. This was his first book, 50 Reasons People Give for Believing in a God. I read this on vacation, and I was just like, this is fantastic. I didn't even realize there were 50 reasons that people gave, but there are 50 reasons in here. And he basically gives the reasoning and tells you why it's not a good reason. And the thing I loved about this is I felt if I were to give this to a religious person, I wouldn't feel like I was slamming them. It's not meant to be a dig. These are just rational thoughts, and it's just great. So I really highly recommend this book. I highly recommend all of his books. So afterwards, he'll do a book signing. Feel free to grab, don't grab them, but buy a book. I'd love for him to walk out of here with no books. So real quick intro, Guy is a passionate advocate for science and reason. He's an award-winning journalist and the author of 6 highly acclaimed books. He has written about many diverse topics, including gods, physics, the concept of race, medical quackery, evolution, doomsday predictions, UFOs, and much more. Guy is an expert blogger for Psychology Today and a frequent interview subject for print and broadcast media. He lives in Southern California, where he enjoys hiking, running, reading, and writing. And tonight he will share his thoughts about some of the best ways to discourage irrational beliefs. So please help me in welcoming Guy P. Harrison.
Well, thank you for having me. Okay, really, I am very, very happy to finally be here with you guys, and I can't express fully how impressed I am with this organization. Brian, Lynn, so well organized. I feel so welcome here. So thank you. You guys are a great group. You really are. And I have to tell you personally, I was sitting back in the corner, I wasn't nervous, but I started to feel like, oh, here it goes, showtime again. But then I thought, wow. I don't really know these people, but I kind of do. I have a lot in common with you guys. I really do, because I know when I come up here, I don't have to spend the first 30 minutes explaining that I don't hate Christmas. I'm not angry at your God. I don't believe in Satan either. I don't have to say all that. We're already past all that, so we can get to some really good stuff. Tonight, what I want to talk about a lot of things, but I want to really focus and hopefully help you guys be better at what you do, what you're already doing, because your mere presence, your membership in a group like this tells me that you're thinking. You have been able to think your way through this fog and this culture that wherever you come from, you're just immersed in this swamp. I don't want to make it sound I don't want to be mean, but this swamp of irrational belief and these terrible claims that have no evidence, and you're just immersed in it from birth. And it takes courage, and I'm impressed with people like you who are willing to come to a place like this, and be together and not be afraid or ashamed, or, it takes guts. And like I said, you're thinking. You guys you're doing great, but I want to help you be even better at it, because hopefully you guys can touch more people than you may have already touched, and you can help make the world a little less crazy, okay? And we need that, all right? Just a little bit about me. Yeah, that's for when I go talk to the general public. I have to put that up, So. But I grew up in Florida. I was born and raised in Florida, just a little small town, and I was surrounded by, mostly fundamentalist Christians. My parents weren't super religious, but they did believe. And my mom, would drag me to church about 2 Sundays out of, 4. My dad believed, but he was much more loyal to the church of the NFL, so he never went to church. But my mom was trying to do the right thing, make sure I was a good kid, and went to church, So I went, and I didn't know any better. I sat there, and I was willing to just accept it all. But interesting thing. even back then, I always had questions, and I think looking back, trying to analyze, like, what was going on in my head back then? Why was I always questioning what that preacher was saying? Why didn't I just take it all in passively? And I think it's because it was just curiosity, I had basic, normal human curiosity, which I think we all have to some degree, but man, too many people turn it off. They stop asking questions, they start wondering, and they just keep trusting. And that's where problems happen. And I'm so proud of myself as that little goofy kid back in Florida a million years ago, that I was sitting in that pew and thinking to myself, how does he know that? How does that preacher know that for sure? How do you know? And that's what it's all about. It's about asking questions, challenging, asking for evidence, all that. So important. And fortunately, even though, I'm not saying I was an atheist, by the way, back then. I believed, sort of, kind of. I wanted to. I tried. I thought I did. When in Little League, when I went up to bat, terrified, I would pray to God, please let me get a hit. And I'd get a hit maybe 2 out of 10 times. I batted 200, so it kind of worked, I guess. But, in high school, I ran track, and I can remember, trying to make deals with God, just let me win this race, and I'll clean up my room like Mom says, or something, And it just, it's just silly looking back. And interestingly, it seems I tended to do very well in races when I had trained really hard and I was confident. That seemed to be the correlation there. But so anyway, I grew up kind of wanting to believe, associating Christianity with good morals and wanting to be a good person. So I kept trying, but it just never really worked. And once I discovered girls, then I could care less about the gods. I didn't even think about it much then. But I traveled a lot. I became a journalist, a writer. And I've traveled through 6 continents, many, many countries, and it was the best thing ever because it really is the best education, much better than university, to just go to places like India, Africa, China, Australia, Papua New Guinea, Fiji, all these places, and meet people. And because when you're a journalist, it's a great thing because you have an excuse to just walk up to people and say, hey, can I ask you some questions? And they don't think you're a serial killer or something, So it's really great. So I've interviewed governors of small countries, and I've literally interviewed beggars in the street with no legs and stuff like that. Just the whole gamut of powerful, powerless, rich, poor, educated, uneducated. And guess what? Irrational belief is a universal problem. It really is. It just hammered home. Everywhere I went, people were suffering, dying even, needlessly, for avoidable reasons, if they could just they could just think their way through lies, delusions, and the problems our own quirky human brain serves us up on a regular basis. If they could think through those things, they would do so much better in life. So much. I mean, trillions of dollars are flushed down the toilet thanks to sloppy thinking. Misery, death, suffering, every moment of every day around the world, avoidable. It's unbelievable. ISIS, for example. Okay, big problem right now. It's all in the news. You got all these people, thousands of people wanting to go fight for ISIS. Nobody in their right mind who is even a halfway decent critical thinker would go fight for ISIS. Forget if you're a Muslim or whatever. If you just had some basic level of critical thinking, you would never do it. You know why? Because the leaders of ISIS, they say things openly, publicly, things like the world is 6,000 years old. A supernatural doomsday will occur very near, in the very near future. Things like that any good high school skeptic would just shred instantly. Where's your evidence? Great. What's your argument for that? Where's the logic? Gone. I or any mediocre critical thinker wouldn't cross the street on the word of one of these ISIS leaders just because of their thinking is so obviously faulty. Forget all the jihad stuff. Just everything else they're saying. Wouldn't do anything for them, much less go kill people and all that. So it's one example, I mean, politicians, experts, they say, oh, the solution is either war or be nicer, foreign policy. One of the two, usually what you hear. Nobody says, hey, we need to raise a generation of children globally who can think. That's the goal. And that sounds like that'll never happen. Well, we got to try because I don't see any other real, meaningful, long-term solution to problems like ISIS and religious terrorism. Got to teach people how to think their way through this stuff. It's not about being educated and intelligent, by the way. Okay, this is about being a person who's brave enough to think and ask questions, think independently, and not just believe everything you're told. That's the key. All right, so let's get going. Why atheism? Why skepticism? Why should we bother? Why are we even here right now? Are we a bunch of losers who have nothing better to do? Why are we here right now? You know, the food's pretty good in the restaurant though, but I was checking that out. But the problem is we live in a world that is really soaked. You can't overstate this. Soaked in just craziness. The things people believe. You think you know. Trust me, I know. I've been to some weird places, seen some weird things. I mean, oh my gosh, people can believe anything. Anything. There's no limit to, as wonderful as the human brain is, it's insane. It really is, because humans can believe anything. Trust me. So we've got this problem. And people like us, meaning non-believers, skeptics, something like that, whatever you call yourself, we are a reaction to this problem. We are thinking, and we're kind of separating ourselves a little bit. We're still part of society. We're not turning our back on humanity. I don't think we should. I hope you're not. But we're making a statement. When you join an organization like this, when I come here to speak to you guys, we're making a statement saying, hey, I think, I'm not saying we're better than everybody else, but I think we figured out something here, a better way to think. Not saying we're smarter, but a better way to think, a better way to deal with all this craziness in the world. Doubt, challenge authority, ask questions, demand evidence, all these basic things. Got to spread that news, got to spread that word. And so something like this, you guys right here, I don't want to turn into a cheerleader here or anything. I'm not even a part of your organization here, but I really want to encourage you to do more. I'm sure a lot of you are doing a lot already, okay? But do more, because you'd be surprised just the power of a good, solid conversation with someone who's an irrational believer, somebody who's taken a wrong step. Don't look down on them. Don't be condescending. Reach out, help them. They don't need a slap. They need a helping hand. That's what they need. That's the way I've always approached it. And I've been very successful at reaching people who believe the nuttiest things, beyond religion and beyond religion. And I honestly think that if you reach people with a sincere heart, if you reach out to people with a sincere heart, you can make a lot of progress. And you guys, you are literally the voice of reason on a planet that's soaked with madness. Think about that, and I don't want to burden you too much, but I view it as if you guys, myself, we sort of have a moral obligation to speak up as much as we can to help other people. It really is. Because like I said earlier, a lot of people are suffering, dying, They really are. Diminished lives. People are hurt. Horrible things are done in the name of religion. You know that all the time. And for all the good religion does, it does a lot of good stuff. I never deny that. Many people get tremendous joy out of it, inspired to do great things, all that. I would never deny any of that. But you can't deny all the horrible stuff coming out of it as well. And it deserves to be challenged. And people deserve to be treated, grown-ups should be treated like grown-ups. Religion is not out of bounds. And I really, really strongly encourage you guys to do more. Talk to more people. Be open about how you think, the questions you have. And it's not a mean, confrontational thing. It doesn't have to be. It really doesn't. If you come with the right attitude, if you're kind, concerned, sincere, most people will accept that. They might be uneasy, they might be awkward about it, but they're gonna get it. Most normal people will. They'll appreciate at least what you're trying to do. All right, now these are some tips. Boy, I got a million of them, but I narrowed it down to this little list just for you guys right now. These are ways that I think can help make you better at reaching out to irrational believers, okay? First of all, give, don't take. A lot of times, you'd be surprised, religious people think, when you come at them and you say, hey, I'm not sure about this God thing you're into, I don't think it's real. Their first reaction is, you are trying to rain on my parade, take something away from me. And they are super defensive. Don't do that. You're not. You're trying to give them something. When I interact with a believer, they tell me, oh, my church is great, or my temple's great, blah, blah, blah. I say, wow, yeah, it sounds great. Wow, that's awesome. Hey, you ever heard about this thing called skepticism? And I try to give them an appreciation for science, an appreciation for thinking like a scientist. I try to give them the ability to think better. And also, keep in mind, we've got the advantage, in my opinion, all right? They may have angels and demons and stuff like that. Supposedly, I've never seen one, but they say they have them. But what do we have? We have an actual real universe that we can point to. It's actually there. It's real. We've got nature. We've got the human mind, the microbial world. I mean, it's just endlessly fascinating things. Wonderful, beautiful, scary, exciting stuff that we can point at. Reality is awesome. It's horrifying, beautiful. It's everything. And it's real. That's why they call it reality. So, do that. Give, don't take. And most people, they will actually react in a way, be much more receptive when you do that. It's been my experience. Less debate, more connection. Okay, I've got nothing against debates. Okay, they're awesome. They can be entertaining and educational, all that. But when you're one-on-one with people or in a small group, don't argue, don't debate, all right? Because you're not just talking. Okay, say I'm talking to a believer, right? Hardcore Christian. And I'm trying to get him to maybe reconsider exorcisms, or angels or something. I'm not going to argue. I'm not going to debate. I'm going to say, where's your evidence? Prove it. I'm not going to do that. You know why? Because I know I'm talking to really two people there. There's two people, okay? We all have two people living in our heads. There's the conscious you and the subconscious you. And if you come at somebody aggressively, really challenge them, kind of get in their face, that subconscious is shutting the show down. Not going to hear anything you say. They're going to be defensive. You're wasting your time. You might feel better. You might feel like you beat up on somebody and you feel superior and smarter and you walk away all smug, but you haven't accomplished anything. So be friendly, talk, connect, reach out to that person, have a conversation. Okay? Don't fight, don't argue. If you want to be productive, okay? If you want to feel good and verbally beat somebody up, okay, go ahead, but at least be honest, that's all you're doing. You're not going to change anybody by attacking them verbally. Flanking maneuvers, I love this, I highly recommend this, works very well, not just within the context of religion, with all sorts of irrational belief. Come at people from the side, go all patting on them, okay, don't just go straight on. For example, if somebody comes to me and says, hey, I saw an angel last night in my bedroom. I've learned over the years. I wouldn't for a second say, no, you didn't, because you can't prove it. Where's your evidence? Show me. Where's the footprint? Show me an angel fingerprint. I wouldn't do all that, because it's not going to get anywhere. You know what I would do? I'd attack from the side. I'd say, wow, that's awesome, man. You are so lucky you saw an angel last night. Wow, that's amazing. Wow, man, that's amazing. And then I'd say, hey, by the way, have I ever told you about human vision? It's unbelievable. The way we see things. It's incredible. Did you know that you don't really see reality around you? Your eyes take in information, images, and your brain kind of sorts it out, and then it sort of edits and assumes and adds some stuff in and presents a representation of reality to you. That's what we see when we look around. And your brain is really slick because it will make assumptions about what should be there, or what you believe is there, or what really ought to be there. But maybe it's not there. But your brain plugs it in anyway. Might have been there yesterday, not there now. Your brain will stick it in because it should have been there. And you'll see it. You'll remember seeing it. That's the brain. I go at it like that. If somebody says, I know Bigfoot is real. I know it. I'll say, all right, cool, wow. I wish Bigfoot was real. That'd be awesome if there was a big, huge primate running, gorilla thing running around in the Pacific Northwest. I'm with you. I wish it was true. But are you sure it's true? They say, yeah, I know it. I say, wow, that's interesting. I wouldn't even really hit him head on too much on the Bigfoot. I would come around, flanking maneuver. And I'd say, hey, Loch Ness Monster? Man, they have totally just figured that thing out. It's bad photos, hoaxes, light playing tricks with the eyes, people just exaggerate and all that stuff. And that's something. And maybe, hopefully, they will connect the dots. That's the best way to go at it in many cases. Very effective. Gods are plural. This is a pet peeve of mine. And I'm talking to atheists, too. Because you guys are as guilty as this as Christians. You really are. And Muslims and Jews. Newsflash. There's more than one God. Okay? Humans have been making up gods for thousands and thousands of years. There are hundreds of millions of gods, according to believers. I'm not convinced they're out there, but they're supposed to be. Okay? Stop yielding 99.99% of the battlefield. Okay, when you say, okay, I will debate with you if God exists or not, why are you doing that? Because that's just one. You still got several 100 million gods to go after that, you know? So stop thinking in terms of there's only one God that's worthy of discussion. Because there's all sorts of problems about this. For one, it's very prejudiced. I mean, I've been to India, Nepal. There's a whole lot of people over there who believe in a whole lot of gods. Okay? So what, they don't count? Are they all crazy? Are they stupid? No, they're smart people. They're sane. I think their beliefs are just as valid as anybody else. So when you say, you know, God, 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 singular, singular, you're insulting a billion Hindus. And you're also insulting the ancient Greeks. Were they all nuts and stupid idiots? They believed in multiple gods. What's going on? Why are we dismissing all these other cultures and other time periods and everything like they just don't even count? It's as dumb as, or as inappropriate, sorry, dumb's a bit harsh. It's as inappropriate as discussing cars, but only ever discussing cars in the context of the Ford Taurus. You know, how weird would that be? If every discussion you turn on CNN, whatever, everybody's only talking about new mileage regulations coming from the government, and it's going to be the goal coming out of the manufacturers for the Ford Taurus. It was always Ford Taurus. New speed limits will be set for the Ford Taurus. You know what? I mean, it would be nuts because there's many other models. Okay, and the reason this is really important, and the reason you should do it consistently when you're interacting with believers, is because it forces them to be more realistic about what's going on this planet, what has been going on for thousands of years. Okay, they need to confront that. All right, it's not a trick, not a gimmick, but you want them to go. You know, when I talk about stuff, I always say God or gods, God or God. I'm on that. Almost always, and I can see people like skip a gear in their head when they're always hearing me, because they wonder, like, why are you saying gods? I don't believe in gods. I say, oh, okay, well, which ones do you believe in, or which one do you believe in? And I make them do that. And like I said, I'm not being snooty or anything. I'm getting them to think more realistically about the actual true religious landscape that we have on this planet. Okay, there's many God claims out there, and they need to confront the reality that we are a species that is just a bunch of God-creating maniacs. We've been doing it forever. It's one of the best things we do is make up gods. Okay, and a lot of people, they get away. That's why Pascal's wager keeps going on and on and on, because they really think it's either my God or nothing. No, it's your God or hundreds of millions of others or nothing. There's a lot there. Another pet peeve. We got to define atheism correctly, and we need to really make an effort to explain what atheism is, because too many people just cringe. Atheism means Satanist. Atheist means angry, bitter person. Atheist means one who knows there are no gods and could not possibly be gods. No, the definition of atheism is the absence of belief in any gods. Period. Full stop. That's it. Atheism. That's what an atheist is. A person who has no belief in any gods. That's it. Okay? And the whole agnosticism thing, forget about it. It's misunderstood. And it's a lame position. It really is. I encourage anybody clinging on to it, let it go. It feels like this comfortable, nice, middle ground position where you can say, well, I'm not sure. No, it's not. Agnosticism is this idea that gods are unknowable. Okay? Wrong on several points here. One, who are we to say what's unknowable? The game's barely gotten going here. It's only 2015. Who knows what we'll discover tomorrow? Nothing is unknowable as far as we know. Okay? So that's a problem. But also, agnosticism doesn't answer the question of whether you believe or not. And that's the question. Do you believe or not? If you believe, you're a believer. If you don't, you're an atheist. Okay? There's belief, atheism, and I guess agnosticism is kind of over here or something. I don't even know. It's not in this line right here. Okay? It's not. If somebody tells me they're agnostic, I say, okay, great. Are you an atheist or a believer? Fine, you think it's unknowable. What does that mean? Does that mean you're an atheist or a believer? And I don't like the thing of strong atheist, weak atheist either. And this is my opinion. I'm open to correction if anybody wants to yell at me afterwards. But because by that definition, I guess I would be a weak atheist. And I don't like being called weak. I mean, shoot, I've written a bunch of books about it. I'm not weak on this stuff. I'm pretty strong, I think. But I am open-minded to the possibility of God, because I think that is how we have to think if we're rational, reasonable people. You got to be open-minded about everything. Okay, that's scientific thinking. You don't. Anybody who came to me and said, "I know no gods exist," my first question, I'd be like, "Well, how do you know that? Have you looked under every rock in the entire universe? Have you checked? Maybe there's a God out there. How do you know? I don't know." But so let's get our definition straight. Okay, atheism is no belief. Period. All right, and agnosticism is, I think, pretty lame. Forget about it. And everything else is belief. You either believe or you don't. That's it. And we need to help believers understand this. Okay, they don't get this definition, and that's a big problem. It really is. An organization like this, people don't understand. They're scared of you because they don't know what you're up to. They think you're a communist, or just, it's amazing the misconceptions people have about just a regular human being who's not convinced of religious claims and doesn't believe. That's an atheist. They can be conservative, liberal, nice, mean, skinny, fat, whatever. You could be anything. You just don't believe. And that should be a huge push towards educating. I really strongly encourage you to educate your friends, your family members on just the basic definition of atheism. That would help make things better. And finally, this is a big one. Plant seeds and walk away. Just walk away with a smile. Okay. When I was in college, I was probably more of a sort of an arguer type, And as I matured and I learned that wasn't productive, and I actually, really decided I want to help people think clearly. I don't want to win arguments. I don't need that for my ego or anything. I'm fine. I don't need my self-esteem pumped up that way. It's pointless. I don't want to argue with people. I want to help people. And so what I've found is it's actually more productive when you just say your stuff. You just say, "Here's why I don't believe." Where's the evidence? I just don't get it. It doesn't make sense. This is my problem with this. This doesn't make sense over here. What do you think? I don't know. And the person, usually, because they've got so much emotionally invested, they're not going to change on the spot like that. It doesn't happen that way. But be confident that at least in many cases you're planting seeds of thought, and those seeds just might germinate over time. And this has happened with me. It's amazing. I've had people, years later come to me and say, "Wow, I just don't believe this stuff anymore. It doesn't make sense, and thanks for, opening my eyes to this." And I'm like, wow, that was like years ago we talked. It's incredible. It really does happen. And so don't look for that short-term reward of somebody saying, "Eureka, you're right, I get it. I'm an atheist." That's not going to happen probably, because you got to understand, you're going up against mom, dad, childhood memories, culture. It's a lot there, emotional investment, all this stuff is there. So you're probably doing good work even when you don't know you're doing it. So keep talking, keep trying to inspire, keep encouraging people to think and ask questions. And that is doing good. It just, a lot of times, it pays off down the road, and maybe you're not around to see that reward. But trust me, it happens. It really does. Promote the 7 pillars of good thinking. And I'm not slipping a commercial in on you here, okay? I thought about that on the way here. I was like, I should have put the cover in there. This is not a commercial, okay? I'm not trying to, great book there, by the way, people. No, but I put that there because I just want you to get, good thinking is my umbrella term for several things that are really important that I think every human on the planet should embrace for their own good and for the betterment of the world. And this book is all about it. But I put that cover there just to show you that when I say good thinking, it's not just some little cool phrase I made up last week because I was going to do a talk here, okay? I'm really serious about this. I spent a year writing this book, okay? Bothering a long list of scientists, asking them a bunch of questions, reading 1,000 science journal articles, which was agony, gosh. And staring at computer screen and pulling clumps of hair out of my head, that for a year, okay? So I really am serious about this good thinking thing, all right? Now, what's good thinking all about? This is the 7 basic pillars of it, okay? First of all, gotta know brain structure and function, Okay, you gotta know something about the brain. Look at this beautiful thing here. This 3-pound blob of electrochemical magic is the most amazing thing in the universe, the known universe so far. I mean, that brain, we can think about the entire universe. We can think about other universes, parallel universes. I mean, it's crazy. There's like no limit to the creativity, the ability to at least struggle with ideas, infinity. Maybe we can't fully comprehend it, but that brain, this blob right here can actually tackle and wrestle with the concept of infinity. I mean, it's absolutely amazing. So you got to know something about the brain, the structure of it. And in my book, Good Thinking, I ask the reader to imagine themselves, shrinking down and taking a tour of their own brain. And I talk about the different parts of the brain, what they do, how they work, how it all comes together. The neurons, how dendrites, pass on messages, and how networks are formed in the brain, all this stuff. And it's not that complicated, honestly. Anybody? I mean, at first the names can be a bit intimidating or something, but a basic understanding of the brain is essential. We should teach it to every elementary school kid. It's a crime we don't. Because the more you know about your brain, the more likely you are to appreciate it, maybe use it better. I mean, imagine if you're a race car driver, okay? And you got the steering part down, but that's it. You don't know anything about radiator, fuel pump, tire pressure, transmission, no idea. How good can you really be as a competitive driver? You really going to fulfill your potential? Probably not. Okay, you probably should know a little something about how the car works if you want to maximize your ability as a driver. Same thing with the human brain. You got to know something about it. You got to know what's happening inside your head. And you know what? This model, I encourage everybody, buy one of these. Keep it around the house. Because I tell you, I keep this around and I look at it. It sounds kind of weird, but I'll pick it up and hold it sometimes. When my kids aren't around to make fun of me or something. Nobody's home, I'll do it. But I look at it, I imagine my own brain in my head and that connection of seeing this and thinking about it. It's really inspirational. It makes you care more about your brain. It makes you proud. It makes you feel lucky to be born at this point in the history of life on this planet and to have one of those so you can do all this amazing stuff. It's exciting. I could go on all night about that thing. Understand a little bit, at least, about brain evolution. Very important, okay? Again, you don't have to be a biologist or anything, but we all should have an understanding of where these brains, these magnificent brains come from, because that helps us understand how they work now and the limitations they have and the problems we have in the world we live in today in modern times. You've got a brain in your head right now that's essentially the same brain humans were packing 100,000 years ago in prehistoric Africa, okay? At a time when the big concern was finding food and not being eaten by a big cat, And now we got this same brain, and, we're on the internet, and we've got jobs, and we've got families, and we drive on highways, and we're watching documentaries on the History Channel about aliens, visiting Hitler, And so all this, our brains never evolved, not yet. They haven't evolved to be scientific thinking machines. They're not. These are prehistoric brains from prehistoric Africa that we've got in our head. Now, the reason we do so much with them is because one of the qualities of the brain, it's very flexible. It can just figure out answers and grow and network itself in all these ways. So it's a wonderful organ, no doubt about that. But the way it evolved sets us up to have problems now, which is obvious. I mean, just final word about this. You got to understand this evolution, the way it works, there's no time out. Okay, so you can't take a species and put it in dry dock and re-engineer things, right? It's all got to change while the species is surviving, okay, in real time. And so things are not planned out for the future. Things are not engineered with a thought toward what's going to be really beneficial 100,000 years from now or anything like that, okay? So weird, quirky things happen. There are things that serve one purpose now, and then they sort of morph into doing another thing, It's just this wonderfully weird way of evolution, the practicality, the demands of the environment require all this. So know something about that. Keep going. I don't want to waste too much time here. Nutrition, physical activity, learning. How long am I allowed to talk?
2 hours.
Oh. All right, okay. Nutrition, physical activity, and learning. Big things. Again, if you know your brain, I think you're gonna treat it differently. You're gonna appreciate it more. You're gonna want to care for it more if you know basic things about your brain. Real quickly, I'll just say nutrition, good news. It's not that complicated. You don't need expensive supplements from GNC. You don't need magic pills off the internet to have a great, sharp brain that lasts a long time. You know what you need? You need to eat well. You know what that means? Leafy green. And this is according to the latest science, okay? Leafy green vegetables, nuts, fruit, high-quality protein. You know, probably like wild salmon would be probably a very good example of a high-quality protein. That sets your brain up to work well. That's what it wants. Avoid added sugar. Added sugar is terrible. Short-term and long-term. Terrible things for the brain. Okay, so take care of your brain. Eat right. Physical activity, crucial. If you go to the gym, keep going. But forget going to the gym so you can look hot for the ladies or the men. Forget going to shed pounds. Your number one motivation should be your brain. It is incredible what we now know about physical activity in the brain. It's amazing. Aerobic exercise can literally grow your brain. The hippocampus will pump out new neurons at any stage of life. I used to think, just 20, 30 years ago, scientists thought that we're born with a finite number of neurons and then they just die off throughout life. Now we know if you eat right, you keep moving, do stuff, and lifelong learning as well. If you do all that, your brain keeps on going, it keeps making new neurons. And you want to do that because you build up what's called cognitive reserve. The more you have of that, the better off you're going to be in old age because you're losing neurons. But if you keep building them up, if you built up a lot and you keep adding, you can kind of hang on a lot longer than people who don't, much longer. This is absolutely crucial. Okay, eat right, exercise consistently, and here's some great news too. Guess what? You don't have to do triathlons. You don't have to be a gym rat 5 hours a day pumping iron, nothing like that. Science seems to indicate that you make some great progress. You set your body and brain up, put them in a good state. If you do as little as 20, 30 minutes, 5 or 6 times a week. Talking vigorous exercise could be walking really fast, so you're huffing and puffing a bit. But think about that. 30 minutes a day, bike, swim, walk, something like that. And you're protecting yourself from old age. You're going to keep your memory going. No guarantees in anything here, okay? But I'll tell you a quick story. There's a nun, I cite this in the book. There's a nun who died very old. Did an autopsy on her. They found her brain was just ravaged, devastated by Alzheimer's disease. Guess what? Nobody knew. Her friends, they were like, what? Shocked. Because she was sharp as a tack till the day she died. Why? The scientists who looked at this case said it's because she had a hell of a lot of cognitive reserve. Something about her lifestyle. She had built up so much in her brain, so many neurons, so many good networks, that even when that disease hit her, brain was able to keep on going until a very old age. So that's amazing. That's what happens. It's like having money in a bank account. The more you got, the better you can handle it. If a hurricane blows your roof off, you're more resilient. You can afford to buy a new roof. All right. Be conscious of the subconscious. All right. Big thing. To be a good thinker, you've got to know. Remember what I mentioned earlier about every human? There's really 2 lurking in there. Well, that's not really the best way to put it because probably 99.9% of the space in the head is filled by one of the roommates. The other roommate's very small. That's the conscious person, okay? The subconscious is just such a huge presence in every individual, doing so much. One way I describe it is imagine, I'll say it real brief, imagine if you're in a lake. You're treading water in the middle of a vast lake, and you're blindfolded, okay? And you don't know where the shore is. You don't really quite understand where you're at. You just know you're sort of floating. And sometimes things bump you, creatures come by, and the currents pull you one way, another way, constantly moving you. Sometimes you swim, you think you're really getting somewhere, but the current's pushing you, you're going backwards. Okay, sometimes you think you're going that way, and you're really going this way because the currents, and you don't pick it up. Well, you, that swimmer, the blindfolded guy, that's you. That's the conscious you. The lake is the subconscious you, that huge, vast lake. And what good thinking does, you're never going to get rid of the subconscious. You don't want to. It does many, many good things for you. You're not going to separate it or get rid of it. It's not a bad thing. But good thinking takes the blindfold off. So at least you know, okay, I'm in this big lake with all these currents and sea monsters under me and stuff. So at least you know. So you know to second guess yourself. You know to think twice about big decisions, about big moments in your life, memories. You know all these things are influenced by that subconscious. You know you're being pushed and pulled all the time by the currents. So it makes you more aware. It makes you more alert to the reality of who you are and how you're thinking. Be alert to hidden biases and shortcuts. This is huge. It's related to what we just talked about. But your brain has got an endless list of these quick ways to come to decisions. We all think, you guys, I know you're sitting there smug, yes, those silly people, they're so irrational. Trust me, every human being, nobody escapes this. We are all crazy people. We've all got one foot in fantasy land, okay? Because we're constantly getting nudged and pushed by our subconscious, all these biases that we have. Some of them are terrible too, very disturbing. I mean, we have, the sweetest, most fair-minded people in the world often do have really bad subconscious biases, against people, and they will treat, like, say, elderly people, or a man who champions women's rights, in public, and cares, and sincerely, not lying, sincerely cares very much for women's rights, may then turn around and hire a man over a woman who's more qualified because of a subconscious bias, and never aware of it. Stuff like that happens all the time. So be alert to that. You've got to be alert. These things, another thing is the brain just wants to always serve you up answers all the time. And it wants to do it. It's trying to help you, because the brain's always trying to help you, keep you alive, keep you going one more day. And so it will serve you up answers, even when it has no information to base any answer on. And a lot of times it'll just latch on to any information, totally irrelevant information, and serve you up this answer. And then you will think, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, and that's your answer. So you always got to second guess yourself, rethink important decisions. Be humble. Sounds simple, but be humble. You got to be humble. And I know it's hard to be humble sometimes when you're sitting across the table from somebody who's telling you about, the conversation they had with Jesus, or, the UFO that landed in their backyard last night. I know it's hard to be humble at times, but you have to be. Okay, that's an important part of good thinking, because we are all in this boat together, okay? Don't ever feel you're totally separated from these, irrational believers all around us who believe the most, ridiculous things. Don't ever think that you're somehow an advanced species. It may feel that way at times, but you're not, okay? You are a human as well. You got to be humble, because you can. And many of you, I'm sure, have believed things just as ridiculous as these other people around us believe, okay? Many people go through stages in life and they have to escape this stuff and think their way out of it. Remember that. Let it humble you. It can happen to anybody, all right? Anybody. So never get arrogant, never feel superior, never feel like I got it all figured out, I'm fine, I'm immune to that stuff. The second you say that, oh gosh, I could give you so many examples. In France, the majority of the French people are atheists. They've moved on from the whole God thing. And guess what? They're freaks about homeopathic medicine and all sorts of medical quackery and stuff. Things that, what? It makes no sense. They're very rational, skeptical in one area, not in others. And that's typical of humans. We're not consistent. So you got to be humble. You got to be alert to your own vulnerabilities. Okay? It is human to believe the unbelievable. Remember that. And finally, be courageous and mature. To be a good thinker. All right? You've got to be, and I'm sure you guys, you've experienced this in your lives, many of you. You've got to be courageous. You've got to be bold. You've got to be willing to not only challenge popular beliefs, popular claims. You've got to be You got to be brave within yourself as well. You got to face things that you want to be true. You got to confront them, and you got to say, you know, I want to believe that so bad, but there's no evidence for it. Why should I believe it? You got to think about these things, you know, and it could be as simple as you're about to buy a new car, okay, and you got to ask yourself, why am I going to buy this car? Is it really going to make me happy? Do I need it? Spending all this money? Think it through. Okay, wanting something, feeling good about it, might be irrational. You got to always challenge yourself. You got to be willing to accept uncomfortable or maybe slightly painful answers. Okay, it's about maturity. It really is very, very important, though. All right, think like a scientist. This is part of good thinking. I just wanted to isolate it a bit because it's so important. You should really encourage believers, irrational believers, when you're talking to them, people you care about, your friends. You know, like I said earlier, remember I said don't necessarily confront directly their claims all the time. Sometimes, sure, but this is something you can give people without them immediately thinking they're trying to attack my beliefs and take something away. Encourage people to think like a scientist because it's a beautiful thing when you do this. And science is for all of us, okay? Big misconception out there. Many, many people just view science as this exclusive club or, you know, this peak of academic achievement that only certain people get to. Nonsense. Science is a human process invented by human people for humans. There's no patent on it. It's no trade restrictions on the scientific process. It's yours, you know? Seize it, apply it in your life, in everything from shopping to picking a career to picking a college to anything, you know? The steps are so simple, you know, research, form an idea, hypothesis, conduct a test or an experiment, you know, test drive a new car, you know, you might buy, that's an experiment, okay? Share the results of your experiment, your conclusion, share it with other people, smartest people you know, share it with them, and listen to their feedback with an open mind, okay? Be willing to change your mind, think like a scientist. When better evidence comes along, no matter how much you love some conclusion or belief you've got inside, let it go. If it's wrong, let it go. You know, think like a scientist. It's a great way to live. All right, well, to wrap up, my own time. Cool. Like I said earlier, I really encourage you guys to do more, okay? And I'm sure some of you are saying, hey, man, I was here 2 hours ago setting up everything in this room. You're telling me to do more. But this is so important. Remember what I said earlier? In a mad, crazy world, you guys, people like you, are the voice of reason. The world needs to hear you. Okay, you really do. This planet is soaked with irrational belief. And we've got to do better. We have to do better. We really, really do. And you guys are the hope. I mean, I don't want to get overly dramatic here, but think about it. You guys are the hope for the future. I mean, what's the alternative? You know, constant clashes of religion, constant discrimination and hatred and prejudice and willful ignorance flowing from religion. What's the alternative? You guys are the hope for the future. And that's not to say you are all perfect human beings, you know, and that you're all the smartest people in the world. Not at all. Not at all. You're all, well, okay, maybe you guys in the front right now. But you guys, when I say you're the hope for the world, I really mean that because you're thinking. You're not following the herd blindly. You're doing something very special, very powerful, okay? Because you're using your brains. And I really hope that you are influencing others in the way you live and your attitudes and the conversations you have. You know, you don't have to get out there and scream on a street corner and wave banners. Just casual conversation with friends. If you come at them with the right attitude, with a helpful attitude, a sincere heart, you will touch people. You will change people, I promise you. And this beautiful brain that we all have, okay? We've all got it. It can create anything. It can imagine anything. It can do anything, including overcome its own mistakes and its own delusions. This brain can do that. So you guys remember that. Never lose hope. As long as there are human brains on this planet, crazed and flawed as they are, we can overcome all all this delusion and madness around us. And we really can make a better world. It won't be a perfect world, but it can be a better world. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. So we got a little time for Q&A. Let's do, okay, a bunch of questions over here already. All right, we'll go 1, 2, 3.
This is a bit of a non sequitur. I've just been hearing on the news how the Republicans...
Hold on, who am I talking to? Oh, yeah, okay, sorry, I couldn't find you. Okay, yeah.
It's like they're creating their own reality. You know, the guy who did the shoot up in Colorado Springs was a transgender leftist activist. Trump is coming out with stuff that nobody can back up, and he doubles down. It's like they're creating their own reality. And it has terrifying relevance to the 1930s in Germany that I've seen. Do you have any insights or comments on this?
Well, we all create our own realities, in a sense, but the reality, for me, that I recreate is, I hope, as close to the real reality as I can get to. That's the difference, you know? Yeah, delusion is everywhere, but it always has been. I mean, it's, like I said earlier, it's human to believe the unbelievable. I'm never surprised anymore. I'm really not. I mean, voodoo ceremonies, the things I've seen and heard about, it's just, there's no limit to it. There really isn't. And the key is just to get people to appreciate the brain they have and to use it. Good thinking. That really is the answer. And you just got to keep pushing that and hope for the best. And although I would just encourage you, you know, there's so much bad news and there's so many discouraging signs everywhere, but we are better off now than we've ever been before. Okay, when you look at the span of human existence, I think now more people are questioning, doubting this rampant nonsense and delusion that's everywhere than ever before. I really do. If you crunch the numbers, you look at the sheer numbers or the ratio, either way you want to go. You know, there seems to be a trend now of people, you know, maybe turning. You know, I hope so. It could go either way. A century from now, we may be totally off the cliff. Who knows? Or we may be fast on our way to some sort of Star Trek-like future where we've solved poverty and disease and we all get along. You know, it could go either way. I think, I hate to say this because everybody thinks their time is special, but I honestly think we're in a very crucial century right now. You know, things going on with the environment, with technology, AI coming, maybe. I mean, just amazing things are happening now, and we need to figure this out soon. It's scary in a lot of ways because, like you said, you got people that just live in these bizarre fantasy zones, and with increased power and when they've got numbers, it's a very threatening thing. It is disturbing, but I'm an optimist. I'm trying, and I'm hopeful.
Guy, that was a great talk.
Thank you.
I really appreciated it, and I imagine you have a lot of fans in the audience here. You brought up as one of your points to define atheism clearly. So, and I know that this is a really contentious issue. If you look in the Cambridge Dictionary of English, it defines atheism as a belief that there is no God. And if you look at a lot of the philosophers have used that definition. So there's a couple of different definitions floating out there. Now I agree with your definition, so I don't, that's not the point. But your definition is that atheism is basically non-belief.
Yeah, I don't like that definition in the dictionary. Belief, I believe in no gods. No, I don't believe in no gods. I don't accept your claim.
So my question to you is, why not just avoid this issue completely? I mean, this is, of course, the atheist community of San Jose, so obviously we've all bought into that term. But why not just use the term non-believer instead? Why even fight that battle?
It's interesting. I do a lot, especially whenever I'm talking to a general audience. It's sad to say. I'll say atheist a few times, and then I kind of shift to non-believer if I sense people are like confused or agitated. And I hate when I do that because I think we need to use the term atheist more just to get people comfortable with it and understand what it means. But, well, because it's just a word. I mean, just because it's like it's been hijacked by people who don't understand what it is. It's atheism. But non-believer is fine. I use it all the time. I use it all the time as well. I think atheist, non-believer, both the same thing, honestly, to be honest with you. So I have no problem with that. When you say things like skeptic, free thinker, that can be confusing to people because you're kind of, you could be a skeptic and a Christian, you can. Maybe not a very good skeptic, but so, yeah, but yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I'm with you. Non-believer's fine. I use it all the time, but I'm not uncomfortable using the word atheist or calling myself an atheist because for me it's just a technical term. It's what I am. But I am very well aware of the baggage that comes with it, And my conflict personally is I don't like to just run away from a word because other people don't understand it. I'd rather fix their understanding of it and just use any word I want, So, but I get you, yeah.
Hi, my name is Fred.
Hi, Fred.
I have a question about your slide that had the flanking maneuver.
Okay.
And sort of how to talk to believers. And your example seemed to be using debunks I'm not sure that the flanking that you were doing went far enough around the back of their ideas. So I have a suggestion for that slide, and that is to approach people by telling a story. People remember
Oh,
stories.
yeah, absolutely.
And-
That's in my book, yeah.
Good,
I'm
okay.
with you. Yeah.
Maybe, I actually haven't read the book. But, for example, and this is a brain example, I remember hearing on NPR an explanation of how deja vu works in the brain, where the signal of what you're experiencing goes to the part of your brain which has longer-term memories before it gets processed by the short-term memory. And so by the time the short-term memory part sends it to the long-term memory, it's already imprinted. And I thought that story, it really had a clarity for me. And I'd never forgotten it. I think it was like 40 years ago I heard that story. So maybe you could, my question is, can you amplify a little bit how you use storytelling instead of trying to just, debunk somebody's idea?
Yeah, absolutely. Debunking is not really an effective thing. It doesn't work with people. They just dig in their heels. It's a backfire effect. They'll believe even more when they walk away if all you did is try to technically dismantle their case and show where their flawed thinking is. It usually doesn't accomplish something. And you bringing up story, that's a powerful thing. We are storytelling machines, and our brains are just sponges for a story. You can talk for hours about scientific data, all this stuff, and people be like, yeah, okay, cool, and they forget it. Tell them one little 5-minute story, they'll remember it for a lifetime, And I use that a lot. I tell people stories about things I've seen, at a Benny Hinn revival meeting I went to. I'll tell the story of being there, and I describe it. I was in the front row, and I saw how he was silhouetted against the dark sky. It was an outdoor thing, and how he was just so brilliant. He would get really low, and he would yell, and the people would freak out and squirm and everything, and how effective he was. And I tell a story, but within that story, I talk about his techniques, and I talk about how he is doing something that stage magicians do and stuff like that to manipulate people's emotions and fool them and all that. And that you're right. Storytelling is a very effective way. And the whole thing about flanking maneuvers, what I'm getting at there is that it's just that I'm trying to avoid that collision that doesn't result in much because people are so invested in believing in something. And so I try to it's a way of planting a seed of thought, seed of doubt. And so what I do is I just say, I talk about a similar thing. Like somebody believes UFOs, I've done this many times. Somebody's just, UFOs are everywhere. And I'll say, well, yeah, I'm not sure, but yeah, I wish they were. I love it. I'll tell them that I'm a huge science fiction fan, and man, I would love for aliens to visit us, as long as they don't kill us. I would love it. And then I just segue right into astrobiology and the search for life in space. And I talk about the Drake equation and how, the numbers kind of look good. Maybe there really are some civilizations out there, according to the Drake equation. Yeah, and I talk about that. And I try to get them thinking more scientifically away from that. And then I talk about what it would take, evidence. If we actually found life out there, we'd have to really find it or a good trace of it or something to believe it. And what I'm really doing is bringing it back home to their UFO thing. But I'm trying to, here's the thing, quick comment. No atheist can ever think for a believer. Okay, all you can do is engage them, interact with them, educate them a bit, hopefully inspire them, and that's it. They got to do the work. You can't think for them, okay? So, don't ever get frustrated. Don't ever give up. Just keep planting those seeds, seeds of thought, and hopefully they'll germinate. Many people, sorry. Good
Hi.
question, Fred.
Yeah, I had a question. So I think that sometimes there's a little bit of an assumption that if we just eradicated religion, that a lot of the bad things that are done in the name of religion would go away. Do you think that there's anything to the fact that might be sort of a flawed assumption that maybe religion is used in some cases as a justification for things that people are already drawn to do for other reasons?
Yeah, that's a great thing to think about, but I think our world would, you never know. It could go either way. Culture's so complex and the world's so diverse, there's 7 billion of us, so you never know. But I think if religion was gone, or if at least people stopped taking it so seriously, I think there would be less violence in the world. But that doesn't mean there wouldn't be World War III next week with nuclear powers going at it or something. We still got nationalism, racism, still got problems with oppression of women and all those things wouldn't just vanish overnight, not at all. Those are different challenges. Problem is, religion fuels a lot of those problems, and so at least take that away. And there was a great quote by the Nobel Prize-winning physicist Steven Weinberg. He says, just to paraphrase, I can't remember exactly, but he says something like, you have good people doing good stuff, bad people doing bad stuff, but to get good people to do bad stuff, that takes religion. And that's really true. And the thing is, but good people will also do bad stuff out of patriotism, nationalism, or following a guru or something. There's many racism. Otherwise, good people do horrible things. In that name. So religion is one problem in the world. It's not the only problem. Not at all. I would never suggest that. We can't get rid of religion and suddenly have utopia. It won't happen.
Hi, thanks for the talk. I have a question. You mentioned about exercising and nutrition and learning. You can comment about sleep and also something related, the world of dreams and how it relates to the quote-unquote supernatural throughout history.
Okay, yeah, I've got a whole section in Good Thinking on sleep, the importance of sleep. Yeah, these are ringers, I paid them to bring this up. No, but yes, sleep is so important to the brain. Stop thinking of sleep as rest for the body. No, the brain, first of all, the brain doesn't go to sleep. The brain keeps working. The brain's working all the time. And it is incredible the things that we have learned in the last decade about the brain. It's amazing. When you sleep, your brain is doing so many things. It's cleaning out all the debris and waste products at night. Getting rid of stuff, clearing you out, getting you ready for the next day. It's also laying down. It's actually, say you work on your jump shot, okay? You practice it. You want to be a basketball player, right? You practice it all day. Well, that night while you're sleeping, your brain is like doing the same thing it was doing that afternoon. It's rehearsing, it's practicing still, laying that in. Memories get sorted at night while you're asleep. So much goes on. Sleep is absolutely crucial to brain health, short-term, brain performance, short-term, and brain health, long-term. Sleep is very important. Now, as far as dreams, dreams have had a big impact. My academic background is history and anthropology, and I remember in anthropology, we talked a lot about dreams and possibilities of how that may have influenced prehistoric people to believe a lot of irrational things, because think how profoundly disturbing or scary that would be to go to sleep and see your loved one who died 2 years ago in this vivid dream. You're running with them in a forest, or something. How would they process that, make sense of that? You can see how that could lead to, waking irrational beliefs, maybe. That kind of stuff doesn't fossilize, so I don't know what the evidence is. But dreams, I have not studied dreams as far as, predicting the future and all that stuff. To me, I think we kind of know enough about dreams to know that it's not a good way to tell the future or anything like that. So I'm not really into it.
Hi.
Hi.
I like that you say think like a scientist, but I think the biggest thing being an atheist is I think there's a lot of truth to ignorance is bliss. So the more you know, the kind of more depressing life can be. So, and there's so much that you can't know, right? There's like so many different variables that you can take into account as best as you possibly can, but you don't know how those variables are going to play out, and there's so much that you can't know. So how do you deal with like analysis paralysis?
Okay, first of all, I like you. I'm not arguing with you, okay? But I don't like it when you say you can't know. I don't really think that way. I can know everything and anything. Now, I know I won't, okay? I mean, I won't. But I have this attitude of potentially I can learn everything possible to learn, okay? I know I won't, but I think that's a healthy way to live. And also, I think the more you know, it doesn't have to be depressing, okay? Maybe this is a personality thing, but I think a lot of it is choice. Yeah, I'm going to die one day, but you know what? I'm making the best of this ride right now because I know I'm going to die one day, and that's probably the end. Okay? So I'm making the best of it. That's a choice. That's maybe a personality thing. I don't know if it's genetic or something or more of a choice. I don't know. But that's how I deal with it. There's nothing depressing about attempting to be aware and honest about the reality as I find it. I mean, a lot of this is choice, I believe. I hope it's choice. I hope it is. Because, honestly, I don't want to... That's a great thing to bring up because, you know, a lot of religious people are very happy. And the last thing I would want to do is make them sad. I don't want to take away something that's making them sad. But I honestly believe, based on not just my own perception, but based on my observations of many people in many different societies, I truly believe people can be fully happy without irrational belief, without religion. They can, because I've seen it. I've seen people who are happy with religion, and then they kind of thought differently and left religion and didn't believe anymore, and they're still happy. I know many, many cases like that. And I know many religious people who are miserable, not happy. You know, so I think it's separate from that. I think people who say you got to have Jesus to be happy, I'm not convinced of that. I mean, because I know too many happy people who don't have Jesus. You know, I know too many happy Hindus, okay? So, I mean, I'm open to correction, but I think that the world would not suffer a detectable dip in contentment, comfort, and happiness if religion vanished. I think we'd all just be we'd be all right. That's my opinion. Good question, though. Thank you.
Guy, I was going to ask you to share a little bit about the Benny Hinn presentation which you saw, but you beat me to it.
Oh.
So question I have is, in one of your books, you talk about how Christianity has survived likely because they indoctrinate the children when they're very young, let's say 2 years old or something like that. So can you tell us a little bit about the difference between indoctrinating a child when they're, say, 2 years old versus indoctrinating them when they're, say, in their early teens?
Yeah, well, first of all, it's not just Christianity. You don't pick on Christianity. I mean, that is the standard method of operation for all popular religions, the most popular religions today. They get their people when, you know, the potential recruit is at its most vulnerable stage in life. You know, a little child that will trust any authority figure and can't really think or challenge that kind of stuff. I mean, that is... You know, family and culture, 99% of the time, that determines what your religion is right there. I mean, what does that tell you? Nobody's shopping. Nobody's comparison shopping. Nobody is, you know, diligently researching 100 religions and comparing them to find the most logical or sensible one. No. What did mom and dad tell you to believe? Okay, that's my religion. You know, what is the culture around you? What does it reinforce? There are exceptions, of course. There's missionaries, that kind of stuff, but 99% of the time, that's what it is. It's not just Christianity, it's the way religions work. And it's terrible, you know. And as a father, it's funny, I confronted that myself because I think that's so wrong to do that, you know, to just pump that belief into a little vulnerable child who, it's unfair, you know, it's manipulative, it's just not right. And when I had my kids, the last thing in the world I wanted to do is do that in a different way, and tell them, don't believe, believe in the silly, don't do it. I'd be another version of that. So it was really difficult because I constantly just wouldn't say anything, and, and I would just wanted them to figure it all out on their own. And it was difficult because at times people were coming at them, I won't, are you still recording? Okay, I'm not going to name names. No family members will be mentioned. But I just felt frustrated at times because I wanted to say, look, that's not rational, But I didn't. You know what I did? The worst thing I did, which I think is right, actually, I educated them about several religions, which confused the hell out of them. Because in the context of their school, they were hearing from kids about Jesus. That's the real deal, Christianity. When they come home, they'd hear about Vishnu, Ganesh, Buddha, Muhammad, and the Quran. I would tell them all this stuff. Scientology, Lord Zeno. They love Lord Zeno. My kids, probably, I'm a sci-fi fan, so I made Scientology sound really cool with Lord Zeno and the volcano and the atom bombs and all. But I told them all this, and it's amazing. Just by educating them like that, and then also, oh, and by the way, some people don't believe any of this stuff. I'm sure I threw that in there somewhere. But I just let them think their way through it all. And neither one of them believes anything yet. And they're both brilliant, wonderful kids. And they get along. They have many friends who are religious. They interact with everybody. It's not a big deal to them. It's really not. I think a lot of it's example as well. I think they see me, I would never be the kind of person that wouldn't hang out with somebody because they're, unless they're destructive in a way. That's the only thing. If a religious person is really socially destructive or mean to people, discriminatory like that, I have a problem with that. I'm not going to overlook that. But if somebody believes stuff and prays and all, that's fine. I could still be total friends, no problem at all, Yeah.
Hey, so my question is, what is the last belief that you had to just throw away because you sat down and figured out you had no reasons to believe it? And if you did this, for every one of these beliefs you tossed out because you had no good reasons to believe it, you wrote those beliefs down, what would that book look like?
The last belief, irrational belief, is that what you mean?
Yeah.
I'm sure I have a few. I just don't know they're irrational right now. I think they make sense, yeah. You know what? There was a time, God, this is going to sound arrogant, but yeah, the last irrational belief I had was when I was about 12 years old. No, but when I was around 11, 12, I saw this documentary about Chariots of the Gods, Eric von Donigen's nonsense about the aliens who came and built our pyramids because we're too stupid and all that. And I saw this documentary on TV, and it was just so convincing. I was like, my gosh. And I had this thing for archaeology as a little kid, and there was a lot of archaeology in there. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is the most amazing thing. And I was like, why is this not on the front page of the newspaper? And this is amazing. And I couldn't believe it. And then, man, thankfully, it had to have been it was probably the same year, maybe a couple months later or something, Nova, PBS series Nova, did a reaction to Chariots of the Gods. They did an episode on it, and I saw it as a kid. I watched it, and I was like, what? You mean you can lie to people? I was shocked. Because a little kid, I thought if you're on TV and you wear a tie, you're obviously an expert telling the truth, right? But man, it just opened, because they explained away everything I just believed, 10 minutes ago. So thank God for Nova. That's it. Because, yeah, and it's funny because when I lived in the Cayman Islands, I was teaching science and history, and it just broke my heart so many times. These bright kids would run up to me, between classes and stuff, and they'd say, hey, saw on the History Channel last night, they got an alien on ice over there, and Nostradamus said we're all going to die tomorrow, and because all these pseudo-documentaries, these terrible things on TV now, very convincing, especially to children, very, very disturbing, and that always hits me because I remember it got me hook, line, and sinker when I was a little kid, It really does. What was the second part of your question? I don't want to duck anything.
He said that if there was wrote down all the...
Oh, my beliefs. Oh. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, come on. Like, when I was in college, I probably thought I was a lot cooler than I really was. I mean, we all have irrational beliefs, you know, but it's too humiliating for me to pour them out right now, you know. It'd be a thick book, I'm sure.
I want to be respectful of everybody's time. I know we're running a little bit long, and I want to get to the book signing. So let's. I'm sorry if I didn't get your question. I apologize, but let's give another round of applause for Guy.
Thank you very much.